Put in the category of no one knows because Devin Nunes won't say whether or not he worked with the White House on the anti-FBI memo. Do you have any reporting that suggests we're any closer to understanding the White House's role? We know that Devin Nunes has colluded with the White House in the past. Last April, he got in a little bit of trouble for it. But can you talk about what you know about the White House's role in the memo, other than assuring us that the odds are 100% that this memo that the FBI is gravely concerned about, that they describe as extraordinarily reckless, is going to come out?
Sure, that's a great question, and that's something we at the Washington Post are obviously chasing right now. But I think one key thing is what you mentioned just a moment ago about we know that Nunes has colluded with the White House before and been a bit disingenuous about it. Remember, he sort of called this press conference to say he had brand new information about deliberate unmasking of Trump officials. That turned out not to be quite right. And it also turned out something he didn't mention at the time, that he learned that information when he walked onto White House grounds and was told it by two Trump administration officials. So if you just look at the public comments so far, which is that he won't answer the question and that the White House won't unequivocally say no. I believe Sarah Huckabee Sanders said, you know, not that I'm aware of. When you see hedges like that in public, it often means the answer privately is yes, they did work together. But again, I have to be clear, we don't know that definitively yet.
Jonathan Lemire, let me read you something that we didn't spend a lot of time on when it broke on Monday, but in light of people accusing the FBI of breaking the law, I wonder if you can explain why John Kelly says this. Kelly held separate meetings or phone calls with senior Justice Department officials last Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday to convey Trump's displeasure with FBI and DOJ and to lecture them on the White House's expectations. Let me read that again. And to lecture them on the White House's expectations. Kelly has taken to ending such conversations, where he lectures them on the White House's expectations, with a disclaimer that the White House isn't expecting officials to do anything illegal. Please explain, Jonathan Lemire.
That's a pretty remarkable way to end any sort of conversation. The White House, we're seeing this as part of a pattern of pressure that the White House has been putting on the Justice Department. We know that Trump refers to the Justice Department privately as his Justice Department, the Trump Justice Department. We have heard him in interviews say that he does expect the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, to have loyalty to him, and he's been angry that he hasn't when he's invoked the names like Eric and Robert Kennedy, saying they were far more loyal to their presidents than Sessions has been to him. On the memo, the White House has received it. It went earlier this week. It's been in the care of the White House counsel's office since then. They have been selectively reading in people to have seen the memo. John Kelly, as you saw that interview earlier, he has read it. They are National Security Council lawyers have it now. And we do anticipate, though the White House has not given it a timetable as to when they will release it, there's a possibility it could be even later today or certainly the next couple of days. They may not wait for the full 5 days that Congress had indicated. The president has said that this is something he wants out there. He is told, as the Associated Press is reporting today, he has told people privately that he feels like it is a great evidence of how the FBI and Justice Department had worked against him, had tried to delegitimize his election, and he thinks this will help clear his name.
All right, no one's going anywhere, but I want to bring into the conversation our table today. Charlie Sykes, conservative commentator and MSNBC contributor. Zerlina Maxwell, former Clinton campaign advisor, now with Sirius XM Radio. Jason Johnson, politics editor for The Root. And John Heilman, NBC News and MSNBC national affairs analyst. John Heilman, you've got some theories about Devin Nunes, but I want to ask you about today's development, because I feel like this is going to be... There's going to be pre-FBI declaring a White House move to be of grave concern, and post, and whatever happens afterward will sort of be post-grave, post-warning of gravity, and everything that happens before. This feels like a marker that the FBI put down today. And I wonder, one, if you agree with that assessment, and two, if you think that the consequences of the White House going ahead and doing something against the FBI's warning could include some high-level resignations.
Yes, on the first thing. Important moment. Not sure about the second thing. Resignations in this administration, it's just like no one resigns.
It's like called Friday, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, people get fired, but here's what I want to focus on just one small thing, right? President of the United States is constitutionally, his main constitutional responsibility is the security of the United States of America, right? Last night at the State of the Union, on the way out, he said he was 100% sure that he was going to release this memo. His spokesperson says, and according to our reporting to this point, he still hasn't read the memo. So the president right now, this is how seriously he's taking the FBI's concerns. The FBI is concerned about exposing sources and methods, about exposing national security secrets. The FBI is now saying they're concerned about the basic facts in the memo. And the president of the United States last night said he was 100% sure he was going to release this memo, which he hasn't read. I'm not sure I have heard a better encapsulation or distillation of the fundamental irresponsibility of the president with respect to his fundamental obligations to the country than that. His FBI is telling him it's dangerous to put this out. He's like, I'm going to put it out, and I don't even know what's in it.
Let me offer you a theory. What if he helped create the memo? I mean, Devin Nunes, according to the Daily Beast, won't say whether he worked with the White House on the anti-FBI memo. A Democrat on the House Intel Committee told me that there's pretty regular and open communication between the White House and Devin Nunes. I mean, what if he knows he's going to release it because he helped create it?
It's certainly possible, and it's certainly the history. As you will recall, the reason that Devin Nunes supposedly recused himself from the Russia investigation was doing exactly this kind of thing, which was collaborating with the White House to create a bogus charge back in a year ago now, right? So precedent tells you anything. I have no basis, no factual basis on which to say that that theory is true, but we have precedent for that theory being true because it's happened before.
Can I underline what you just said there, though?
Jason, then go ahead.
Well, the fact that the language of the FBI is calling them reckless, essentially saying that it's also going to be dishonest. That, I mean, you know, cut through the verbiage. They're saying this is
bogus.
Let's get that exactly right.
So you have here, you know, the recklessness, the dishonesty, and the cynicism, because we all know what this is about. This is all about the Mueller investigation. This is all about discrediting this. This is all about the complicity now of members of Congress in this long-rolling obstruction of justice.
And we've seen this with Nunes, who's run around like the administration's Iago, just sneaking in, whispering into everybody's ear these crazy conspiracies. And I always step back from these things and say, look, there's always reason to question institutions, right? I don't inherently have a problem with Congress saying, hey, let's make sure. And look, every single agency says it's going to risk national security. They said that during the Obama administration. You can't talk about torture. You'll risk national security. So all of those things are legitimate. But we're looking at this in the context of a president who just yesterday said, yeah, I'm going to ignore Congress, which said we should push sanctions against Russia for investigating, for influencing our elections. And now I'm going to ignore our own Department of Justice, which says, hey, this has something to do with that process. This speaks to a president who is absolutely dead set against following anything that has to do with the safety of this country. That's what's dangerous about this.
I would also say that as people in the media, we have to remember that we ran an entire where I was on a campaign last year where the irresponsible use of classified information was a central tenet as why we shouldn't elect Hillary Clinton. And President Trump and all of the people in his campaign argued that. Republicans in Congress argued that. And so I think sitting here today, it's pretty hilarious for them to be arguing that we should be ham-handed about releasing classified information that could potentially damage ongoing investigations. And I think to Barbara's point, that's an important one. The long-lasting impact on the U.S. attorneys that have to go before courts. They have to argue cases in front of juries. Juries are now hearing all of these smears about U.S. attorneys and the FBI, and that's going to